And welcome
Mhm.
to another episode of Next Level Love Stories. Today, we are super excited to bring to you another relationship expert in the world. This is
Yeah.
Jeanell Greene. She is a relationship coach and marriage expert who is well known for saving countless marriages from loneliness and divorce
Mm.
while also addressing generational trauma. Her passion lies in rekindling the best friend dynamic for couples, allowing them to rediscover profound love, peace, and fun again. Jeanell believes that self love and forgiveness are necessary to be in a healthy, happy relationship, and that couples can attain the marriage they've always desired by embracing the healing, growth, and change journey. She is here in this work to guide couples on this beautiful, transformative journey full of compassion, love, and wisdom, empowering you to be not only the best partners for each other, but inspiring role models for the rest of your family.
So good.
Welcome, Jeanell. We are so happy to have you
Yes.
sharing your love story as well as what you've learned and some, I'm sure, like gold nuggets of wisdom for other couples who are listening.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited about this conversation.
Yes. So, start us off. Tell us about your relationship, a little bit about your love story, and what for you makes it a next level love.
Yeah, so my husband and I, we've been together for coming up 18 years in
So
about a
good.
month.
Yay.
Yeah, and we just have, when you're a little girl and you kind of, you fantasize about that person you're gonna someday fall in love with. I'm a
Mhm.
huge romantic. I love Disney movies, and I know they're people have different opinions about what that, creates in our belief system. But for
Sure.
me, I never gave up on love. And I've just
Mhm.
been a romantic, and I had hoped that I would find someone who would be a match for me. And Michael is such a match, and yet we're so different. And I think that's what makes us so great is
Yes.
that, his weaknesses are my strengths. My, weaknesses are his strengths. And so we really, we're really compatible, and we really
Mhm.
lift each other up. And so, I'm very like high strung, intense, and my husband's super laid back, grounded. And so, he really brings me down to reality when I go into a bit of a tizzy.
Mhm.
Him, I'm the one who really encourages him to get uncomfortable, to really like try on new things that he may have not tried on before
Mhm.
due to his bit of a traumatic childhood. And
Mhm.
so when I first met him, he was very insecure, very shy, very introvert. He's the kind of guy that when you would look at him, he would blush, you know?
Mhm.
And now he's like in 3 rock bands. He's
Wow.
a songwriter. He's in a Pink Floyd band. He's in a Rage Against the Machine band. He travels the world.
It's
You know,
amazing.
That's awesome.
we just bring out the best in each other.
Mm.
So cool.
And I strive to be the woman he thinks I am.
Oh, I love that. And you spoke to that too in your bio, right? Like becoming the best version of yourself for your relationship and how that then ripples into other areas of our life and other relationships in our life. Um,
Absolutely.
so it's like so key, right? Like the who you be in
Mhm.
relationships.
Yes. And so many couples, I think one of the issues that I see is there's a lot of doing, but there's not
Mm,
a lot of being. It's like, oh, well,
yes.
I do this, and I do the laundry. And well, isn't that enough? Well,
Mm,
no, not really. I mean, especially if what you're looking for is that emotional connection, which we all so desperately want and
yeah.
need. And yet some of us are just afraid to open ourselves up and be vulnerable because somewhere along the line someone told us that vulnerability was weakness. And I am definitely one of those people
Mm,
who grew up with a really strong mother who
mhm,
never cried, who never asked for help, who never said no. And so
mhm,
I had to really retrain myself. And part of my journey was Mike is actually my second husband.
mhm.
And in my
Yeah.
first marriage, it was a very, very different experience. But what I learned out of that relationship, my husband sometimes says to me, I wish I met you before he did. And I say, no, honey, because who I was and who I am now are totally different people. And I will not appreciate you for all who you are now back then. But really what I learned from that experience was that I did not love myself enough to be a stand for what I wanted out of this marriage. I was sort of like, well, someone wants me, like someone wants to marry me, so I'll just figure it out. And yeah, it's not perfect, but it was kind of like a settling experience. And so when I was in it, I was extremely angry and bitter and frustrated and alone. And I just, right? Like I felt like the victim in this. It's like, you duped me. You said you were going to be this kind of husband for me, and you're not.
Right. Because you were expecting him to kind of fill those holes.
Right.
Of enoughness.
Yeah. And also like I told him what I wanted. He was like, oh yeah, me too. But at the end of the day, that wasn't actually what he wanted. I think he just said that because he thought that that's what I needed to hear.
Sure.
Yeah. At the end of the day, what he expected from me and what I expected from him were completely different. And so once I actually took full responsibility for that, I was able to say to him, listen, you are great the way you are. It just doesn't work for me. And I'd like to complete this relationship. And so we got to go to the divorce courts together. We signed the papers side by side. We went out for dinner. He dropped me off at my house. I gave him a kiss on the cheek and I said, good luck. And I think it costed us $85 to complete our relationship.
Yeah.
It was like, but I want to stress that it wasn't going to go that way. Like it got pretty heated and very icky at a point until I really took responsibility. Like, yeah, I chose this relationship. And whether or not, whatever his part was, I had to take responsibility for me. And I think that's a part that's missing in a lot of relationships is taking the responsibility for our part. Like, yeah, but they did this, so I'm justifying being this way. But that doesn't work.
Yeah, you are speaking our language, Jeanell.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, to your question, what makes our love work? What makes our love, next level? I think teamwork is definitely on the top of the list. Like we are the best. Our communication is up there. We take full responsibility. Like, and I want to think about what makes a really great team, right? Like, let's think of like a hockey team. What makes a really great hockey team? Communication, responsibility, preparation, accountability, practice, right? Just continuing to practice those moves that we haven't mastered yet. And I think fun and play is so important because after being married for 20, 30 years, it is so easy to get caught in this sort of humdrum, boring routine that starts to feel really boring.
Yeah.
And so I think my husband and I are really, really great at surprising each other, at being playful, at being silly, at, showing up for each other in a way that is always a creation. And I think that's what people forget is the creation part, right? So like when we get engaged, why is it such a magical time? It's because we're creating this future in our minds of what's now possible, right? But then when we get married, we have the kids, we have the house, we get into, being parents and, just the normal stuff. That starts to disappear and we stop creating the future. And so for Mike and I, we're always talking about our dreams. We're always talking about what's next. We talk about what we want to try, like hobbies. So we're talking about buying a new piano and us learning certain songs and we're going to jam together. And we get really excited about the future that we're creating.
Absolutely. Yeah. Having goals. And you're right. Like when you don't have that shared interest,
or just that shared direction, that sense of usness, who we are, where we're going, and the excitement and novelty of it.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get into this stagnant energy of just feeling stuck. And you're right, Jeanell, bored with life, with your relationship. This is where couples get into feeling like roommates with one another, like ships passing in the night. They're just parenting together or just going through the routine, and they lose that spark, they lose that passion.
Mhm.
But
Absolutely.
I love that you're framing it through the lens of creation, because
Mhm.
that is 100% what it is. What are we creating together? What dreams, what future, what new
What
experiences
next? Yeah.
like
Yeah.
can we create? Yes.
Yeah. Like my husband, if you ask my husband any question about me, he will have an answer. Like he knows me through and through because we talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, we share a similar love language, which is verbal affirmations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we just like ooze love and compliments and acknowledgement and like cuteness. And I tell my husband every single day how amazing he is, how perfect he is, how there's nothing I would want to change about him. And that really allows him to just show up for who he is without guilt, without fear, and just let him know that how he is, no matter what he thinks about himself, is perfect.
So good.
And he does that for me too. And so we're constantly lifting each other up. Like even just before I came on this call, I was about to close the door and he yelled out to me. He's like, "Good luck on your podcast, baby." So supportive of me. And I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's so sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It makes me think about like this piece of attachment, like safety and security that
Yeah.
Jessica Fern talks about in a book called Polysecure, which is expressing delight. And that's, like I've done a lot of reading and learning about attachment as a, relationship therapist and then coach and just general nerd. Um, and that was like a new perspective, right? Like the value of expressing delight in your partner more than just words, because not every couple gets so well matched. I'm also a words person. Cal is not, so I don't get all of the
I
gushiness
know.
back
I
from
was like,
him.
she's gonna be so jealous.
I'm a little
Michael.
envious. I'm
Yeah.
like, that would be so sweet,
Yeah.
but that's not his strength, and he tries, and that's
I'm working
okay.
on it though.
But like there's other ways that we get to express that delight and
Right.
lift one another up, and I think that's like it, like in your smile, in your kiss, in your touch, in for me, the way that Cal slaps my butt when he's walking past me. It's like it is like, how can I, and this connects to what you were saying earlier, like how can I help my partner know how special they are,
Yeah.
how wonderful they are, how perfect they are? How can I be the kind of person who leaves my partner feeling wonderful about themselves, completely loved and accepted as they are?
Yeah.
And even if you're not sharing the same love language, like it's that like decision, that who you be, right? That like makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, I think some women forget that, as different as we are and as frustrating as it can be, because we sometimes assume that our partner should be able to read our minds and know exactly what we want.
Mhm. Especially if we've told them once before or twice or even a couple times.
But I think at the end of the day, I have to admit, I have a soft spot for men. Most of my clients are men. I don't know if it's from my dad, like the stuff I went through with my dad, but or is it growing up in a man's world working in software sales for 20 years? I'm not sure, but I just have a really deep understanding and compassion for men. And what I really get about men is they just want to make us happy. And us women, we're so hard on ourselves, right? We expect so much from ourselves, therefore we expect a lot from our partner, and oftentimes that gets lost in us trying to quote unquote fix them, and spending more time pointing out all the things that aren't working and what's missing and what didn't go right, rather than acknowledging the effort and the thoughtfulness and the gesture of them doing that thing, even though it's not perfect. And so I have this belief that we train people to treat us the way they treat us.
Mhm.
And so for my husband, whenever he does something really great, especially when it's something very spontaneous, I gush. I'm like, oh my gosh, baby, thank you so much. That was so sweet. Like, oh, you know?
Mhm.
And when I share these with women, they're like, well, why would I do that? Like, why would I gush? Like, I just said thank you. Like, isn't that enough?
No.
But it's like, but you want, but that's what you want, isn't it? So why would
Yeah.
you not give that to receive that?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I think there's this part of us, and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna call myself out on this because this was my thinking too, is like I was so stingy with compliments because I thought if I give too many compliments, they're gonna get a big head and be
Mm.
arrogant. So I don't want them. I want them to stay modest and humble. But I realized the power of that acknowledgement with my husband because he just lights up when
Mhm.
I really acknowledge him, even for the smallest things.
Mhm.
And then he goes, oh, okay, that thing I just did, good. Okay, I'm going to do that again.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to
Mhm.
look for ways to do something similar so I get that payoff, that
Mhm.
acknowledgement.
Yep, that
And
that positive reinforcement in the training process. I mean, that's real. It's real.
it is. And people, sometimes they'll roll their eyes at me, but I'm like, it works. I
Mhm.
know it. You're like, oh, they're not children or they're not a dog. Yes. And it still applies.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's still training your brain. And what the other thing that's cool about it is now you're both so focused on the positive, right? Like, how can
Yes.
I give you more positive reinforcement? How can I continue to show up and do things that so I can receive the positive reinforcement or
Mhm.
like please you,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And it's just like this constant like game, but like to like just keep getting better. And
Yep.
it's like it sounds simple. Maybe it makes it into like people are liking it to like training a dog, but like it's important training though. Like
It is.
and
And
it's like it's a good thing. Like you're
it's so
getting what you
motivating.
want,
It's so
both of you.
motivating to
Yeah.
like to receive that love and acknowledgement from your partner, to have that little like chest puff of like, I did a good job.
Yeah.
Like, and
Amy,
and
right?
women want that too, right? Like,
Yeah.
I where you have a soft spot for men, I have a particular soft spot for women. Um, and I think as we women hold ourselves to such high standards of doing so much, there's this expectation that we sometimes have for ourselves that that's just how we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to
Right.
do. But there's
Mhm.
also this like nobody sees it because it's expected,
Mm,
and I'm not appreciated. I do so much. I feel like there's some days, we've got 4 young kids and a business, and I'm a generator and a go go go, and it's like at the end of the day, I've done so much,
yeah.
and nobody maybe has thanked me for it. Nobody has recognized or acknowledged how much energy I put into that.
Yeah.
And that, so like to have that reinforcement, to have that acknowledgement, and to make that a part of the practice of what it takes to be a team,
Mhm.
like how we cheer each other on.
Yeah.
Like a good team is like we cheer each other on. We're like, yeah, that was a great shot. Like, oh, nice job. Like, way
Yeah.
to go out there. It really does lift everybody in the family system
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
teaches everybody how to support one another and appreciate one another in the effort that we're giving to the system.
Absolutely. And yet it's so foreign for most of us,
Sad.
right? It's such
Yeah.
Mhm.
a foreign, like, so, when I think about one big lesson my husband taught me very early on was this thing called apologizing. In my family, nobody apologized. You
Ouch.
fought and then you walked away into your rooms and then you would cool down and then you would come back into the living room and pretend nothing happened.
Mhm.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
my husband is like the complete opposite. Like he wants to clean it up right away. He will apologize even when it's not his turn to apologize. But it really taught me just like the power of that, being able to be vulnerable and saying, hey, like, I'm so sorry that I did this. And I really want to know, like, what was that like for you that I did that?
Mhm.
Like, wow, like this is really refreshing. But that's, I think, one of the beautiful things about my husband is he's just so humble. And at the end of the day, all he wants is for me to be happy, for us to be happy.
Mhm.
Sometimes I get people asking me to invite Mike onto these podcasts.
Mhm.
Of course, my husband's like, "Oh, I couldn't do that. I'm
Oh.
too shy and whatever, right?" And he says, "Well, what would they ask me?" I said, "Well, they probably just ask you, what makes our marriage work?" And his response was so great. He's like, "I don't know. It's really simple." He's like, "I ask myself, if I do this thing, will Jeanell be happy or mad? Happy, I do it. If it's mad, I don't do it." And I'm like, so simple yet so profound, right?
It really is.
But like what I see when he says that is he takes the time to think about things before he acts.
Yes.
He looks at, okay, how is this going to impact her or our relationship if I do this thing?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's why he's just been such a great partner. And like, not like we're perfect, but we definitely create a really safe space for each other, because I think if you don't have that safe space, you can't come in and talk about the hard stuff. And there's a lot of hard stuff that we go through in life.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. But I think what you're also talking about is really just this like foundational belief that you're operating from within one another around your love, care, prioritization of one another, right?
Yeah.
And just
like that's a thing.
Yeah, and you're holding each other to well, I don't know if it's holding each other, but like you're seeing each other in just these really elevated, loving, caring, like I want to love you the best I can kind of place. And that alone is a baseline that most couples are not operating from. They're not thinking about like, how can I do something to make you happy? It's often like,
me.
Mm-hmm. Right. How can you do something to make me happy?
Yeah. But it's also, right, you've both trained your brains to see each other in such a positive way and in positive light, and that also very rare, but so important. Like your opening line was like, I strive to be the woman he thinks I am, which means he's holding you at this high esteem. You're holding yourself to this level that just like continues, has no ceiling.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because there's moments when I sort of stop and I kind of just get present to the level of, if you want to call it, the rating of our love scale, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And there's often times that I go, man, it is so good right now. I can't imagine it being any better than this. And yet it keeps getting better and better and better.
So good.
And can we just talk about the bedroom for a second and how this
Please, we're not talking about sex enough in these. Let's go there.
It really translates into the bedroom.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Like, so just like make sure my door was closed, make sure he can't hear me. So my husband's love language is physical touch.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for him, like, and there are times, especially when I'm stressed out, that I'm not in the mood. And I might allude to that I was open to it earlier in the day, but maybe towards the end of the night, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. I'm so tired. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, sure do.
We definitely understand this story.
Right? And so, first of all, like if I'm a no, I let him know that, hey, you know what, honey, I'm so tired and it's not you. And so he doesn't take it as rejection. And then what I do is I re-promise. I say, honey, tonight's not going to work, but can we try for tomorrow? And he's like, yeah, no problem. And then the other thing I realized, and I've only actually just realized this in the last few years, was that for my husband, it's not just about sex. Yeah. It's actually like a very, just the intimacy of being together. And so on those days that I may not be up for sex, I'll say, honey, I'm not really up for it, but hey, you know what? I would love to pleasure you. And he's like, yeah. Right? I'm like, oh, that's good enough. Okay. I didn't think that was good enough. I just assumed that that was, like, But the other thing the point I was going to get to was that I actually go through a ritual before we have sex.
Ooh, tell us.
So first thing I do is I take a shower.
Okay.
Of course. But then when I get into my robe and I feel, I smell good.
Mm-hmm.
I have the candles or the light, the special lighting. I put on my music and I actually meditate before sex. And
Ooh,
what I do is I tell
nice.
myself and I get present to how much I love my husband and how much I appreciate him. And that sex is not just this thing that I'm doing for him because he wants it. It is my opportunity to express my love and commitment and appreciation in the way that he wants it received.
Mm,
And
that's
so
so good.
it's not just this physical thing. Yeah, it's a physical, it's
Yes.
great, but it's really coming from a place of like love and service and giving. And like and we talk during sex, and I'll say to him, like, honey, like, I want you to know how much I appreciate you. I
Mhm.
want to love you and give you everything that you need, because so that all you don't need anything else but here, like this, you get everything you need right here.
Mhm.
And I think when we talk about like trust and loyalty, sometimes we take that for granted, and I don't take that for granted.
Mhm.
So I do that mental work. I also do physical, so I do some yoga to kind of just open up my body.
Mhm.
And so I go through this very specific ritual, and then my husband also has his ritual as well. And so each time it is so mind blowing. Like, we have been together for 20 years and I can still orgasm like 4 times in a night.
Nice.
Like, and normal, like that's a normal thing for us. But
Yes.
it is so much of the mental space that I put myself into to be able to connect with
Mhm.
them at that level.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So good.
And you can believe I will be doing some meditation before sex.
Absolutely.
That sounds like it would be so like helpful in um connecting to my body, connecting to Cal, and up leveling the experience eh, quicker and better. This
Yeah.
is a wonderful, wonderful tip. And I'll say also, like, everything that you're talking about, Jeanell, is so connected to this personal responsibility
Mhm.
of who who we need to be in order to have this next level of, right?
Yeah.
Like the mental work that we need to do to prepare ourselves to have sex, the intentions that we can put into place when we want to ask or let our partner know that we don't want to have sex,
Mhm.
the ways that we understand and are conscious of our partner's love languages, the way that your husband slows down and thinks to himself, what response can I have? Like, is it going to make Jeanell happy? Is it not? Like,
Mhm.
that's all of that internal work. You're moving out of like autopilot in your relationship into conscious creating,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
respond.
not just in the dreams of the future, but like in the moment to moment experience. Let's consciously create this sexual intimacy. Let's consciously create what happens next after this argument or in response to these feelings within me. Let's consciously create the kind of love and connection, the kind of fun and play and joy. And that is, I mean, like, that's what, in the work that we do with couples, we're constantly inviting our clients to step into, because
Mhm.
we know that that's where the magic happens. It's
Yeah.
not the focus on how to get your partner to be different,
No.
but the focus on like how you can show up and what that looks like, how you can help to create that safety, the connection, the romance, the spark, the passion, the joy, the celebration, the acknowledgement. And when each partner decides to do that work, the whole relationship just
Mhm.
blossoms into something that is, has like you're describing, just so fun and easy and wonderful. I can't imagine anybody listening to you talk about your marriage, Jeanell, without being like,
I want a marriage
want
with no ceiling.
I want a marriage like that. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can have it. You're
Yeah.
like, you can absolutely have it.
Yeah, yeah. And I love what you said. You said easy. I'm like, yeah, it is really easy. Not
It's
that
not
it
usually
doesn't
a work
work.
associated with relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is easy. And it's funny. I often have, when I tell people how old I am, they're like, wow, like you look so young. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't have someone at home sucking the life out of me. And it's a little bit of a joke, but it's true. Like I just have so much love and
Mm.
appreciation and joy and fun in my home. And luckily for me, both Michael and I are musicians. And so we love to play music. We love to sing. My husband is the cook in our house, and when he's cooking, he's dancing around the kitchen. And when I come in, he, twirls me around. We just have this really joyful friendship that
Mhm.
even when we're 80 years old, I can see us still doing those things.
Mhm.
So good.
That's the dream.
That's the dream.
That is the dream.
Yeah.
So I know you touched on it a little bit, but if you could summarize, right? What did it take to get there, to like achieve this?
You
What
know
would you
what?
say?
Yeah, I would say honestly, a lot of it had to do with me and
Mhm.
me healing
Mhm.
my wounds, and him as well. When my husband was a young boy, he was overweight, and he experienced a lot of rejection from women. He was always in the friend zone,
Mm.
right? And so there is a belief that he has that he's not enough, or we all have that
Mhm.
at some level.
Mhm.
Yep, we do.
And then for me, my dad cheated on my mom with my mom's best friend and got her
Oh,
and left and then died. And so I had to do a lot of work in determining what was that 9-year-old when she watched her dad leave, what was it that she believed? And what I came to find out was that I believed that I was unlovable, that I couldn't trust people, that
Mhm.
everybody I love would leave me. And so it made sense why I got into the relationships I got into with bad men or toxic men, because subconsciously I knew that they were going to eventually leave. So why would I pick a nice guy?
Mhm.
So until I healed that, and even my relationship with my mom and her being such a strong woman and not being able to allow herself to be vulnerable, I had to kind of unpack that on my own.
Oh yeah.
And so the more I do that, the more I'm able to love myself, and I'm
Mhm.
able to allow Michael to love me, because I noticed in the beginning I was so weird about his affection. It was almost
Mm.
like I would like, "Ugh, you're too much," kind of thing. But I realized that it was my inability to receive that acknowledgement, even though that's exactly what I was, hoping for.
Mhm.
There's this
I get
part
that.
that's like,
Mhm. You might know something about that.
I might know a little bit about that.
but there's this part of me that was like, uh, he's just wearing rosy colored glasses. There'll be a
Yeah.
moment when he'll figure out that I'm not as great as he thinks I am.
Yeah.
And then I read the book from Harville Hendrix about receiving the love you want, and he
Mhm.
talks about that we can only receive the amount of love to which we love ourselves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I really yeah. And so I really started to do the work on myself to love myself.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah. That is so important, and I'm so glad that you named that as part of the journey,
Mhm.
right? Because
It's totally a you journey.
it is. And we've been talking about the you as in like who you be in loving your partner and showing up for them, but we'd be missing this really big chunk if you hadn't brought up the like deep inner healing work, like the roots of what needs to happen internally in our own healing and growth journeys in order to be that person for our partners. Because if you're right, if you don't really love yourself, if you don't think you're deserving, if you don't think you're worthy or enough, then as hard as you might try to like step up and be your partner, that energy, right,
Yeah.
is going to come through.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you're not it's yeah, it's going to be part of what gets co-created on a non-conscious level. So we really do need to do that deep healing work
Yeah.
within our own relationship with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, a few years ago, if you said to me, Jeanell, do you love yourself? I'd be like, yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? And I think that most of us don't understand what that actually means to love
Mm,
yourself. to be your own best friend. I don't know about you, but the way I grew up, I was, I started playing the piano when I started dancing competitively when I was 4. I started doing Royal Conservatory of Music piano when I was 6. I was
Wow.
competing like every quarter. And so I've always been at this sort of high
High level,
performance
high
level.
achiever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so my little voice in my head is always beating myself up because to be perfect.
Mhm.
Yes.
And I
Love
didn't realize where that was coming from or why I was feeling so much anxiety
Mhm.
and why I was unable to fully love myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think, going through that journey of like, what does self-love look like? Where I can fully love and accept myself just the way that I am. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, we cannot give to another what we don't have for ourselves.
Yep.
Mhm.
So a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, Jeanell, I want to forgive my partner, but I can't." And my first
Mhm.
question is always, what is it that you haven't forgiven yourself for? Because if you don't even know that experience for yourself, how can you give that to somebody else? And that goes for love, that goes for acceptance, and all of it.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
love
that.
it.
That's great. Great. So much
Truth
gold
bombs.
here. I love it. Thank you.
My
Oh, okay. So I know we don't have a whole lot of time left. What advice or words of wisdom would you like to make sure that anybody listening really takes away from this conversation?
I think the two things that lack in this world that I think would make a huge difference is compassion
Yeah.
and empathy.
Mhm.
I believe that that's when people, and forgiveness at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think if people truly understood what that's like. So first of all, again, have compassion for yourself.
Yes.
Starting with yourself.
Yes.
Yep.
Gotta start
Starting with
with
Almost.
yourself. Yeah. If we actually did that work, and I think this also comes around, like it's sort of connected to the self-love conversation,
Totally.
right?
Mhm.
When we can bring compassion to ourselves, now we can bring compassion to our partner. Because at the end of the day, we think we know our partners so well, which is a bunch of BS because our partner barely knows themselves. Why
Yeah.
would we think that we know them so darn well? And so a
Mhm.
lot of the times when I'm with clients, are like, oh yeah, he wouldn't say yes to that, or he would, they just make these assumptions. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? And and again, we know like this much about our partner. I could even
Mhm.
say that about Mike. It's like I don't know everything about him.
Mhm.
There's so much about him that we haven't even talked about.
Mhm.
So I think being able to be curious, being compassionate, knowing that we are different and that's okay.
Mhm.
And that we do sometimes mess up and that's okay too, because we're human.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right. And when we
Yep.
can just let that go, yeah, sure, clean it up, have the conversation about what didn't work about it and create a structure of the future, but don't hold on to it. There's no point holding on
Mhm.
to the past, to mistakes. And then
Mhm.
people are wondering, well, why can't I get to this place of joy, love, and connection from a place of fear, regret, resentment? They're not in the same
Yeah.
And
realm,
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so we actually have to be willing to let that go. And that's hard. And that's where the inner work has to happen.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Love that.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
So we'd love to hear. I mean, for those of you watching, I'm sure like a lot of what you're saying is resonant. If people wanted to learn more about the work that you're doing in the world, the things you have going on, um, how would they find you? And certainly share, like, what do you have available?
Yeah, so I have a website and I'm at JeanellGreene.com or at saveourmarriage.ca.
Okay.
And I'm going to be talking on a summit in about a week and a half on September 28th about infidelity recovery, how to go
Nice.
from hurt to healed.
Cool.
Nice.
And then I'm going to be doing a workshop around fun and playfulness and how to bring that back into the marriage in mid-October. So those are
Cool.
the things that I'm creating. And if clients want to just, have a consult with me, they can do that through my website.
Awesome.
Awesome. Do you want to drop the name of the conferences?
Yeah, the first one's called Empower Her.
Okay.
Cool.
And that's someone else's summit. And then the workshop is my own. So they will learn more about that as it comes. So if they sign up for my newsletter, they can access that.
That's the best way to learn about the workshop, is to sign up for your newsletter?
Yes, on my website.
Okay.
Amazing.
Awesome. Well, Jeanell, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your story. This has been so much fun. I'm sure that we could like nerd out on relationship stuff all day long.
Totally.
You know what? Thank you for allowing me. I don't actually get to talk about Mike very often in these because there's no time, but just being able to just sit in that experience of love and just reminding myself of how lucky I am to still have a partner even after 20 years. Like this man, when he kisses me, I still do this because it's just like it's like electric, and and I know it's the same for him, and
So
it's very
great.
special. And I want that for everyone.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's the dream.
Same.
And most people don't know how to create it. And I'm so glad that you're also in the world leading people down that path.
Yes.
And showing them what is possible. And that it can just keep getting better, right? Like we don't hit that point where it's like, now it's good. It's like if you stay on this path, you keep doing this work, you keep investing that energy into the relationship, it just keeps getting better. And that is such a sweet realization when you can start to experience and create that for your life. It's so good.
Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
It was so great to meet you. So good to be in connection with you.
Yes. And we will make sure that we've got some links on available in the comments of this episode. And again, everybody who, if you're feeling resonance with Jeanell and you know that she's supposed to be your person in the world, please reach out to her because clearly she's doing amazing work.
Thank you.
Yes.